Coming up on Tech News Today, the U.S. government spies on Verizon, maybe you too. AMD cozies up to Google, and the Zeus Trojan rules Facebook. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, June 6th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Samsung Galaxy, iPhone, and other smartphones are worth at Gazelle.com. And by ProXPN. ProXPN is a virtual private network that allows you to use the internet the way it should be, anonymously and without oversight. For 20% off your new account, go to proxpn.com/twit and use the code TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we try to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, put them in some context for you, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. The Guardian released a confidential court order from the U.S. government compelling Verizon to deliver daily reports of telephony metadata to the National Security Agency from April 25th of this year through July 19th. The metadata for any call involving at least one U.S. participant includes routing info, truck line, session ID info, things like phone number, IMEI, IMSI, calling card, the time of the call, and the duration. It does not include personally identifying information or call content. The order was made under the Patriot Act, Section 215-50 U.S.C. 1861.
Samsung has launched a firmware update for its Galaxy S4 that might ease the pain for owners of the 16-gigabyte version who really only have about 9.15 gigabytes of usable space. Once installed, users will have the firmware ability to offload their app installs to an SD card. According to Sam Mobile, Samsung also opened up 0.08 gigabytes of space on the device's drive. Don't use it all in one place.
Hulu must feel like the belle of the ball because it may have another dance partner. All Things D reports that AT&T is in discussions with the Chernin Group to make a joint bid on the video site. All Things D says that unless bids come in above $1 billion, there may be no sale at all.
Flirt. Microsoft, Europol, and the U.S. FBI, along with authorities in more than 80 countries, have launched an assault on the Citadel botnets. Microsoft claims its digital crime unit helped take down 1,000 of the estimated 1,400 networks. Citadel has infected as many as 5 million computers and is credited with stealing more than $500 million U.S. from bank accounts in the past 18 months. The next step is for government agencies to try to apprehend the individuals behind the botnets.
On the third day of an antitrust trial in a Manhattan federal court, Russell Grandinetti, VP for Kindle content on Amazon.com, has testified publishers gave Amazon.com an ultimatum to let them set prices of ebooks sold on its website after they reached deals in 2010 to sell through Apple. Amazon could have been barred from selling books for its Kindle e-reader the same day physical hardcovers were released, unless Amazon agreed to these terms. The U.S. Justice Department filed a lawsuit against Apple and 5 major U.S. publishers back in April of 2012.
Popular to-do list Any.do just got a revamp. The new version of the app is more minimalistic, according to Mobile Syrup. The app lets you manage your lists using taps and gestures. The new version is available on iOS and Android right now.
Pew Research Center's Internet in America Life project released a new study authored by Aaron Smith about smartphone usage in the U.S. Let's get to the fanboy numbers first. 28% of respondents say they have an Android phone, 25% say an iPhone, and 4% BlackBerry, 1% Windows, everything else below that. Also, 56% of U.S. adults say they have a smartphone, passing the 50% line for the first time for Pew. 35% say they have a non-smartphone, and 9% have no mobile phone at all. Wealthy adults and younger people were more likely to admit to having smartphones.
What a fanboy smartphone. The team that sold early mobile gaming company NG Moco to DENA for up to about $400 million is now in a bit of a stealth mode on a new company called Network. Instead of an E, there's a 3 in there. They've raised $12 million so far to, as they say, reimagine how people consume mobile content around their personal interest. Details are pretty scarce at this point. The founders say this isn't just another Flipboard, it's something new. Kleiner Perkins, which backed NG Moco in its original iPhone-focused iFund, Google Ventures, and Floodgate are all throwing money at the potential.
Intel may get a lot of press over its attempts to make headway in mobile devices, but AMD wants in too. Don't forget about it. Senior Vice President and General Manager of Global Business Units Lisa Su told PC World at Computex that AMD sees a market for Android and Chrome developing. Now, ZDNet's Adrian Kingsley-Hughes points out that earlier this year, Su said AMD had no plans to support Android. Well, plans change. And with the PC market declining, AMD wants to find new homes for low-power chips like Temash, and Android and Chromebooks seem as likely a place as any, I guess.
Snapchat just launched version 5 of its app, and TechCrunch calls it a dramatic revamp. Now you'll be able to double-tap to reply and swipe to navigate. Additionally, there are new tools to add friends and in-app profiles. The camera part of the app has less UI Chrome. The newest Snapchat is available now in the Apple App Store. The Android version is not updated yet.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Gazelle. You probably want some new gadget out there. If you're like me, you're always looking at something like, maybe I should get a Samsung Galaxy S4. Now, got that waterproof edition and the firmware update, or maybe an HTC One or iPhone 5. Maybe you still got your eyes set on that. Before you upgrade, make sure you sell your used phone or your gadget to Gazelle for cash. It's simple. If you don't want hassle, and who does? This is the way to do it. Go to Gazelle.com, Gazelle.com, find your item, tell Gazelle the condition. They'll even buy broken iPhones and iPads. Get a risk-free offer for your gadgets. Gazelle locks in the quote for 30 days. 30 days you have to decide when you're going to send in the phone, get your new phone, move your data over, but you still get the same price that was good 30 days before. And once they get it, you'll get paid fast by check, PayPal, or an extra 5% with an Amazon gift card. Gazelle now is buying back a larger selection of tablets, too. In addition to the iPad, you can now sell to Gazelle select Samsung, Google Nexus, Kindle Fire, Microsoft Surface, and Asus tablets. So go now. Go to Gazelle.com. Get an offer for your tablet or your smartphone today. It's trustworthy. I've done it. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars to over 500,000 customers. Free shipping. In fact, most items even qualify for a free box. And you can find Samsung Galaxy S2 prices, Samsung Galaxy S3 prices. As we mentioned, all kinds of tablets now. Find out what your iPhone, your Samsung, your other Android smartphones, or your tablets are worth. Take a minute. Go to Gazelle.com. Sell your used Samsung Galaxy or iPhone today at Gazelle.com. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories in the news, very happy to have the host of Techzilla and my good friend Patrick Norton back on the show. How's it going, Patrick?
Hey, Tom, I'm doing good. And don't forget this week in computer hardware.
Yes, I mentioned that yesterday when I teased you, but it's very important this week in computer hardware as well, because that's the network we're on right now. But good to have you back, man. And we have a juicy story to start off with here. As we mentioned, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court ordered Verizon on April 25th to start handing over that telephony metadata. Now, it's not personally identifiable because it doesn't say who was using the phone number, but a lot of people say you could use this kind of content, the IMEI numbers, the phone numbers, to reverse engineer and figure out who this is for. The Obama administration seems to consider it legal under the Patriot Act. An unnamed senior official told Reuters it allows counterterrorism personnel to discover whether known or suspected terrorists have been in contact with other persons who may be engaged in terrorist activities, particularly people located inside the United States. But it's got a lot of people upset. Senators Wyden and Udall have previously warned about the extent of surveillance being done. They can't comment specifically on this because it is a classified document that The Guardian posted, but they say this would be the kind of thing we were talking about. Tim Clementi had told CNN last month, we mentioned this on the show, that digital communications were being collected by security agencies in the United States. And Verizon has told their internal employees, according to the Wall Street Journal, in a memo, that when they are ordered by a federal court to turn over information, they have to do it. And that's what's happening here. This is a court order. It's a secret court. It's a secret order. And the order says you're not allowed to tell anyone you're following the order. So, Patrick, I mean, this is obviously a political story, a cultural story, but from a tech point of view, it's disturbing because you want to protect your data, including your phone calls, when you're using a cell phone out there. And we heard in the news feeds that more than half of people are using smartphones these days.
Well, that's why I use single-use only burn phones. I have a large collection of them that I keep in a sack with me at all times.
Because you watch The Wire.
Yeah, no, look, it's frustrating, right? If you look at the different phone networks, the different carriers, you know, one will hang on to your text messages for 90 days. The other, I think AT&T like hangs on to your text messages for 90 days, but doesn't retain any information on your browsing habits or the reverse. It's just privacy sketchy. The Patriot Act itself is even sketchier. And the Patriot Act enables, government agencies with somewhat questionable motivations. And don't get me wrong, I love the NSA. I love what they do. I love the people. I love the technology. Big fan. But it's really creepy when it's like, we're going to scoop a giant collection of information to see whether or not we can hook this up with known problems in the Middle East or other things we're looking at. And then we're just going to, look at it. You know what I mean? It's just that information is going to be sitting inside of a database somewhere forever.
It's the definition of a fishing expedition.
Yes, it is. And the flip side is like, hey, is it successful? Are they doing something useful with it? We can get back to the really irritating conversation that keeps happening every couple of years. Should you really expect any privacy on the internet? Should you expect any privacy on any cellular carrier? And to some degree, no, at this point. I mean, the Patriot Act alone is sleazy enough.
One of the things that the actual act that governs this says is that the information requested cannot be requested solely upon the basis of activities protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. So they can't just go and spy on everyone at once. On the other hand, they say that this isn't a Fourth Amendment violation because you're not searching. You're just looking for a list of things. Do you think that it's justifiable to say, give us all the data?
No, not really. I think there's a legal basis. The Patriot Act is incredibly broad and lets the government pretty much do anything it wants. I mean, I know people were freaking out when the government could check your library books. Like that was making people upset. This idea that this personal device that you keep on you all the time with America's largest network, they have the largest subscriber base. The fact that this data is being turned over is just flat out scary. Even if you're doing nothing wrong, you don't necessarily want your data just being out there anyway. So, I mean, normally I'm like, oh, yeah, there's always a reason for this. And if you got nothing to hide, there's no problem with this. But this is just crazy after a while. And it's going to cause people to they're going to overreact and they're going to panic. And the thing is, it's actually probably the best time in the world for BlackBerry if they're coming out with their BlackBerry Messenger for a cross-platform. That stuff's encrypted. If you don't want your data being spied on, even if you're doing nothing wrong, there's something really, as Patrick put it, sleazy about the government just having their eyes on everything. I think the worst, I mean, who knows how long they've been doing this, but the fact this is coming to light, how good are they with their secrets to the point where we know about it?
If there was personal identifying info and the contents of the calls were being parsed, day in and day out, that's what I would call crazy. Call me naive, but some session ID info, how long I may have talked to somebody else on the phone, that kind of stuff doesn't really bug me. And I understand that they're trying to link people that are known to be issues or potential issues with other people. And that is something that I actually appreciate for my own safety and the safety of others. So, yeah, I mean, there is sort of like a sleaziness whenever anyone thinks about it as, what I'm talking to somebody and it's two people are in the conversation, that the fact that might be intercepted by anybody else always makes us feel a little bit weird. But what is the alternative exactly?
I think data in a vacuum. Thank you. This data in a vacuum, this finding out that this is happening, that seems to be enough trouble. The fact that there's so much more data that's being collected about us that you can be linked. Anytime we've seen those studies where, it's only anonymous data that's being collected. It's the only anonymous data that's being checked on, that there's always a follow-up story of, yes, and it's been linked to your Facebook account because they can figure out exactly what's going on. It's not like the NSA is like 3 people like in a basement. It's a very, very big government agency. So there's something weird about government effectively building a profile about you when you're not doing anything.
I think the secrecy involved here is another thing that's unsettling because, frankly, a lot of this kind of information is very similar to what's already available to anybody on the internet unless you're encrypting your connection all the time, right? IP addresses are equivalent to phone numbers. Email is not encrypted by most people. So you're actually giving more information away in most cases when you're using the internet. And this order is only for the Verizon Business Network Services. That's their enterprise division. But we don't know what other orders for other divisions may have been issued, or for other telcos for that matter. And the fact that this is all done in secret by a secret court, I think, is what's unsettling to people. Patrick, would it be irresponsible to make this sort of stuff public record?
Well, the first thought I had was one is that I think it's adorable that IAS thinks that the BlackBerry stuff, like I've spent so much time at DEF CON, I automatically assume anything that's encrypted, somebody's got a backdoor to it, especially somebody as big as BlackBerry, which may be completely insane on my part, or tinfoil hat. It's probably pretty tinfoil hat. But looking at this, it's like, should the information be public? Ugh, it's a little frightening, because once you have the IMEI data, you can pretty much figure out who this.
I'm saying the request, make the requests public, I think the
request should be public. Because Declan McCullough's article on CNET basically is saying that, like, Section 215 has been reinterpreted by a special Department of Justice. Where does it? It's been Section 215 has been used to obtain driver's license records, hotel records, car rental records, apartment leasing records. It goes on and on and on. And that essentially that Robert Mueller hinted during a 2011 congressional hearing that there was a secret legal memorandum prepared by the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel that authorized a broader use of Section 215 than is publicly known. So you have a secret agency using a special interpretation of a law of questionable taste to begin with. It's a problem, right? Because we have this long, drawn out, grinding war, and the continuing efforts to maintain security for the American people, and the efforts to really, in honest efforts, day-to-day efforts of people to have the information they need, to get the intelligence they need to break down terrorist attacks, or to at least to try to prevent them. So it's a public safety versus public self-interest, public privacy,
public oversight.
Yeah, it's if everybody's acting honorably and the data is used well and it's not like being used, it's troubling right now, of course, because there's so many other things that are pounding on the White House right now, like the whole the IRS's behavior and it's just messy. It feels very Watergatey to me.
And exactly. And in the end, you can protect yourself from this. You can use VoIP, you can use burners, you can encrypt your communications. There's all kinds of ways to prevent this sort of thing from happening. I'm not saying that makes any of this, that justifies it or not, but if you're worried about it, there's actions that you can take. Listen to Security Now, for instance, with Steve Gibson. Well, let's move on. Sorry, Patrick.
I was going to say, isn't this all the stuff the terrorists have been doing for a decade just to avoid this kind of sweep?
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to something more fun. The idea of AMD making Chromebooks.
Yeah, an interview with Computex, Lisa Su, the senior VP and GM of Global Business Units at AMD, saying, quote, "We are very committed to Windows 8. We think it's a great operating system. But we also see a market for Android and Chrome developing as well." So AMD is going to expand its custom chip business so its processors can run more operating systems, specifically Chrome and Android. Chips will be based both on x86 and the ARM architecture. Now, AMD previously said it had no interest in Android, and its chips would be exclusively tuned for Windows 8. The company is working with developers on Android apps for AMD chips. Now, Su did not say when AMD-based Android tablets will hit the market, but BlueStacks and AMD had a deal a long time ago to optimize BlueStacks Android player for AMD chips that would allow you to run Android apps on a Windows device. Patrick, do you think this will support for Android and Chrome OS? Will that give new life to AMD?
I hope so. I don't want AMD to go down. I think AMD wants any market it can get a toehold into. I think they're horrendously behind Intel on this, and Intel's horrendously behind AMD. They make a good part. With the new Haswell processors and just the power optimization that's going on with the Intel parts right now and the AMD parts, the ARM parts, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not AMD can chase down that kind of performance level. I would love for them to have success with Chrome OS and Android, but I think they're really going to be chasing from far behind at this point.
Tom, we've always seen that AMD chips are usually much more low cost compared to Intel equivalents. If Intel wants to get into the tablet market, and they've been trying to, and they want to get to the mobile business. Shouldn't Intel be scared out of their minds that AMD, who's pretty much desperate at this point, that they might go into ARM?
Yeah, no, because you're still taking on ARM. ARM is your big worry there. Somebody running far behind you is not as worrisome as the guy you're trying to catch. So I wouldn't be too frightened by this if I'm AMD. And it's obviously, I agree with Patrick. It's a step AMD has to take, but they've got a lot of runway to catch up on here. So yeah, I'm excited about the idea of AMD based Android, maybe some little laptops, ultrabookish type things. But it's one of those steps that they have to take, but isn't going to win the game for them. There's lots of other things they have to do.
Sarah, we've seen AMD. They apparently are powering the next generation consoles, game consoles, that is. If they can get into mobile with Android and Chrome, do you think that's going to really be a great business for them to be in?
Well, I mean, that's probably what they wanted to have happen with Windows exclusivity, right? I mean, I think that, yeah, AMD is sort of like, hey, we need to play some serious catch-up. So I know that we said that we didn't really need Android back in the past, but turns out we do. So, yeah, this is a logical step, and the potential is huge.
Yeah, the thing is, if AMD makes cheap chips, the thing is, if they go into ARM, there are far too many vendors out there that can license that. It's just any company can license the ARM architecture. So there's nothing really special about AMD other than the fact they have an expertise that a newcomer may not have. So if they can somehow leverage what they know about making x86 chips, and they can somehow make an ARM chip that can do more than the other ones can, because we've seen differentiation out there. Qualcomm makes a really good ARM chip, and Samsung does too. So if AMD can do something special, perhaps it'll make a difference. But that mobile space is incredibly competitive. Just ask Intel. They're having real trouble with that. But I think diversifying is probably the smartest way to go for a company like AMD.
It's Jason Castronake's article up on The Verge basically says AMD wants to go into this market, but only if somebody wants to partner with them, which basically means if somebody will pay us a lot of money to do this, we'll do this. I mean, they have
make the parts. Somebody's got to order the parts.
Yeah, which I think that makes this kind of a dead in the water situation, or the kind of thing you make an announcement for to see if it does anything to your stock price, or just to see if anybody calls up and says, yes, we want to go with your new part that's designed for Windows 8 and larger batteries and larger environments, and see if we can actually make that work in an Android environment. But it's
a
also
different kind of fishing expedition.
Well, yeah, but also when you look at something like products like the Ouya coming out, it's like Android's starting to show up in some really interesting places, and some really larger devices, and more sort of connected to the wall type devices, not mobile devices. So I'd be curious to see whether or not somebody takes them up on that offer and where it shows up, because the graphics performances could be fantastic compared to everything.
You know what else is starting to show up in some interesting places? The Zeus or Zeus Trojan.
I say Zeus, but Zeus. Yeah, sure.
I've heard people say Zeus. I don't know.
This is actually a Trojan horse that's very nasty. It was first detected back in 2007, so it's nothing new. But if you haven't heard about it before, basically it's infected millions of computers, many of them in the U.S., in fact, the majority. Once your computer is compromised, you've got this little Trojan horse that's dormant until you log into your bank site, say you want to pay some bills. Then it'll steal your passwords. Then it'll take all the money out of your bank account. It can actually replace a bank's website with its own page that looks really real, grab your social security number. That can then be sold in the black market, and you will never get a home loan for the rest of your life. What's interesting about this is that researchers at security firm Trend Micro say Zeus peaked in May of this year. So this has been an issue for, 6 years now, and malicious links are showing up where? Facebook fan pages. What kind of fan pages? Oh, like ones called Bring the NFL to Los Angeles, which is something that a lot of people like to be a part of. Yeah, sure, let's click on some links, right? I know. I just kind of love that part of it.
It's kind of like, I don't know, a football team in Los Angeles would be a virus of its own.
Yeah, go Niners for life. Malware Labs, which is a security lab, did some digging around and confirmed that the links on these pages are serving up Zeus malware. They're being hosted from computers known to be controlled by a Russian criminal gang known as the Russian Business Network. Yeah, I don't know, shady biz there. They've been linked to various online criminal activities. Now, this is a New York Times reporter went ahead and said, okay, Facebook, what do you have to say about this? It sounds really terrible. Facebook spokesman pretty much told this reporter, we already have a statement. We actively scan for malware. We offer users an opportunity to enroll in self-remediation procedures, such as scan and repair malware scan, and that can scan and remove malware from your device if you're worried that something like this has happened. But it seems that, this can be an extremely serious issue, especially when Facebook is tied to all sorts of things like virtual gifts. You're actually using your actual money to maybe send somebody a gift for their birthday, and you've got your phone number as a backup method in case you forget your password. Patrick, what do you think Facebook should be doing? Or do you think that what they have as far as scanning for malware is sufficient?
Yeah, I'd like to see Facebook do a lot of things that tighten up the security and watch the code but Facebook, I think Facebook, I put so little information on Facebook because I don't trust Facebook. I don't trust apps on Facebook. Facebook creeps me out, which may be
You're not alone.
You know what I mean? It's and it's such an amazing place to just, whether you're talking about like Farmville or a Trojan, it's just such an amazing place to gather large groups really, really quickly. So I would love to see, I think Facebook has to at some point start doing a much more serious job about security and scanning what's going up there. But that would also, Facebook would also have to imply responsibility or accountability, and they're going to avoid doing that for as long as possible, just because they don't want to be sued. Or maybe they won't do it until they're sued. It would be kind of interesting to see whether or not they, how long they can manage to kind of avoid controlling a lot of what's getting posted on the site.
As Facebook is sort of like, hey, we've built some tools where you can help yourself if you're, in a bind, like your bank account having $0 as a balance. But it's been pretty clear that people are constantly fooled by scams and malware attacks and all sorts of links that seem legit and then end up not being so. What should Facebook do? I mean, are they going to wait till a lawsuit? Do you think that they're working behind the scenes?
I definitely think they're working behind the scenes to figure out a solution because they're in a really delicate position because they have so many users right now. They don't want like a Vista-like experience where anytime you click anything, you have a little pop-up window. Then people stop. They will ignore that eventually. So unless Facebook is doing a lot of things on the back end, like they're saying that they're actively scanning for malware, unless they're checking every single link and they have a list and they're matching it against it, and it basically stops you from going to that website, almost browser-based style things where you see, big red flag like on Chrome or on Firefox, that kind of thing. I don't know what else they could do without damaging the user experience. Because to a lot of people, and I say this all the time, Facebook is the internet, and this stuff's on the internet normally anyway. So it's not like we ask, hey, internet at large, what do you do about this? We usually put the onus on the browsers. Our browsers are very much protecting us in that respect. So maybe Facebook needs a browser. I don't know. Maybe that's where I'm going with this. I just kind of got lost there.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Facebook has learned that having a walled-off little internet will still have the same problems of the internet. And that seems to be exactly what's going on here. Just because you hide yourself behind a little proprietary fence doesn't mean you're going to avoid malware, at least not for very long.
Well, especially, something that's as dangerous as this particular piece of malware peaking a month ago, in 2013 after first being detected in 2007, and the majority of it is happening through Facebook links. The company's got to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break and thank one of our sponsors that can help you take these sorts of matters into your own hands. If you want some privacy anyway from prying eyes, why don't you check out ProXPN? More than ever, your online freedom, your privacy under threat. ISPs want to control what you can and can't see. We know governments are looking at data all over the place, not just in the United States, and keeping a record of things that you do. Plus, if you use free Wi-Fi at the coffee house, you need to use VPN, or a hotel or an airport. Anything like that can put you at risk because your passwords and sensitive data can be intercepted more easily in those situations. I use ProXPN for those very things. When I'm at the airport, when I'm in a hotel on Wi-Fi, I fire up something like ProXPN. In fact, I use ProXPN. It's a global VPN that works with almost any internet connection. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel through which all of your online data passes back and forth. Any online application can work with ProXPN, including your web browser, your email, your file sharing, your instant messaging programs. I've done things like stream video through it. ProXPN keeps everything you do online hidden from prying eyes, disguises your physical location, and gives you unfettered access to any website or online service, no matter where you live or travel to. Protect yourself against prying eyes. Bypass any kind of filtering. If you're visiting a country that maybe has blocked websites and you need to get to something that's important, you can bypass those restrictions. ProXPN software is for Windows and Mac, offers advanced controls. You get to choose the server. I use the one in Dallas a lot because that seems to get me pretty much everything that I need and at a good performance level. But maybe your mileage may vary. You may try one in Singapore, London, something like that. And Steve Gibson over at Security Now gave it a great review. So why not do this? Go to proxpn.com/twit for more information and to sign up. ProXPN premium accounts are normally $9.95 a month, $74.95 for an entire year. But we've got a special offer. Use the code TNT and receive 20% off the lifetime of your account. That's less than $5 a month on the yearly plan. If you're not satisfied, you can cancel within 7 days. Try it out for a week for a full refund. Go to proxpn.com/twit. Sign up with the code TNT. And we thank ProXPN for their support of Tech News Today. All right. As we mentioned in the news fuse, Hulu is just, everybody wants to send them flowers and cards, but does anybody want to send them $1 billion? I guess that's the question.
That's what Hulu wants to know. So All Things D is saying that AT&T may join the bidding process for Hulu, and AT&T is in discussions to team up with the Churning Group to acquire Hulu. The Churning Group, I think a while ago, offered about $500 million for Hulu, and they turned it down. All Things D's sources say that no sale would happen if bids do not come in at levels above $1 billion. Now, Variety says the bids right now are lower than the $2 billion Hulu sought in 2011. Variety is also reporting that two of Hulu's current owners, Walt Disney and News Corp, want to sell their interest in Hulu because it is strategically misaligned with their own interests. Oh, yeah, one more thing. There's another new bidder in the process, according to Bloomberg. This was last week. Talent agency William Morris is pairing up with Silver Lake to bid on Hulu. Now, Silver Lake might sound familiar because those are the folks who bought and flipped Skype to Microsoft. Variety says that News Corp and Disney hope to reach an agreement to the sale process within the next 8 weeks. So we got suitors including DirecTV, Time Warner Cable, Yahoo, now potentially AT&T and the Turner Group, Silver Lake. Patrick, does the thought of AT&T getting Hulu make you feel sick like me?
I don't know if it makes me feel sick, but first I'll be honest. I'm not a huge Hulu fan. So anytime I pay money and still get ads, I get kind of irritated. But yeah, I would much rather Yahoo or almost anybody else owned Hulu than AT&T, because I can just see exactly where, you know what I mean? I can see AT&T is going to pull it in. They're going to make it premium. It's only going to be available if you have their crappy DSL service. It's nah, you know, but it's, I'm kind of figuring who would be a much better match for it? Yahoo? You know, can Silver Lake flip another product to Microsoft?
I don't know. The Peter Chernin Group I was kind of excited about, maybe because he's one of the guys that helped get Hulu off the ground, and maybe it would take him in a cool new direction. If AT&T is involved with it, though, what AT&T is going to want to do is sell more of those deals, like where for what ESPN with Verizon is doing a thing where they'll pay Verizon for ESPN to reach Verizon customers and not count against the data cap. And then that's just, I don't want to go down that road. And I would hate for AT&T to take Hulu down that road in a big way.
Sarah, last time we talked about this, we had the Time Warner Cable's potential, making this the avenue for TV everywhere, which still requires a cable subscription and everything. Do you think AT&T would pair this up with their internet service provider service, or would they just tie this to their Uverse service? Because it seems like whatever happens is AT&T, I just don't trust their management when it comes to a property like Hulu.
Because what? All the other telcos are so great. AT&T is just that one that somehow is going to ruin Hulu for the rest of us. Yeah, I mean, I think that probably what AT&T would be interested in is similar to what other companies would be interested in, where you can sort of add the Hulu layer on top of your own offerings, and that turns into something that looks attractive. You've got content. There's all there's all sorts of ways that AT&T will win by having something like this. I love the William Morris angle, and of course we might just be talking about stuff that's never going to happen because Hulu wants more money than maybe some of these partnerships can come up with. William Morris partnering with Silver Lake to bid on Hulu, and William Morris is a very big talent agency, one of the biggest. That's weird, isn't it? I mean, what happens then? All the featured actors who are represented by William Morris, get top billing, on the stuff that's new, on Hulu's homepage. I don't know.
Yeah, the Bloomberg report was talking about how the William Morris being involved was this avenue for their talent, which would be a really strange idea. Patrick, what do you think?
Well, it's funny. I think Sarah and you both raised a really valid point. Is right now you've got Netflix and Google Play and Amazon Prime and Vudu, which is essentially the digital arm of Walmart, all fighting it out over content and rights to content. And I just don't see how Hulu, once it's stripped of its relationship with Disney and Fox and Comcast/NBC Universal, I suddenly see Hulu's content relationships changing drastically and maybe getting more expensive or more complicated. I think it makes sense for somebody like AT&T or Yahoo to be like, this is a complete system and we're just going to adopt it and then start throwing money at content like everybody else does. And I just think the whole thing is a mess. It would be bizarre, I think, for William Morris to drop $1 billion to try to create an avenue to promote stars. It's possible.
I've read a few things that the talent agencies are very interested in getting into creation and distribution of content. So that I look at that part of the story with very curious eyes. That I'm not sure if I would want that, but that seems to be what they would be after.
Well, if you think about it, it's like right now the big audience is sort of the audience you can walk into at any level, or the sort of like collective video audience is YouTube. And if you have a hit on YouTube, in most cases, 50 or 60% of your revenue, best case scenario, you're getting 50 or 60% of your revenue. Maybe if you have all the clout in the world, you might be getting 70% of your revenue. But that's fundamentally on pre-roll ads. I can see where somebody would be like, yes, I can take my huge stars, I can own all of the revenue. I will have an existing revenue stream based on the subscriptions. I would be curious whether or not the existing audience would continue paying money into Hulu if it didn't have, because most people you go to Hulu because you're trying to see a show that's still, being broadcast. It's mid-season, you're not going to Hulu. I don't know. I just see Hulu as being kind of a very different market as from Netflix or Amazon Prime or Google Play. And I think I just question whether or not they can actually have the content that people come to Hulu for if they don't have that very direct ownership relationship with big players like Fox and Disney, ABC, and NBC Universal.
4 days from now, Apple storms the stage at 10 a.m. Pacific for WWDC. We'll be there live at live.twit.tv to cover it. Sarah, it seems like there are fewer rumors this time around, but we're starting to get some, right?
Yeah, and I only have 2 more days to talk about this, so I was going to take this show as one of those 2 opportunities, and we're going to talk about MacBook Airs because Lord knows I need a new one. 9to5Mac has been, they've been tapping their sources. Earlier this week, they said, we hear Apple's going to release 4 new Mac models at WWDC. Might be MacBook Pros with Retina display models, different sizes, that sort of thing. Or it might be MacBook Airs. Today, they say, we've got pricing info, and these price points correspond to what Apple's current pricing for 11-inch and 13-inch MacBook Airs are. So all signs point to new Airs. Okay, now it turns into what's going to be new about them. Well, Intel's new Haswell chipsets were officially announced this week. Better battery life on all fronts, so one could assume, that we got MacBook Airs that have great longer battery life. Also, 9to5Mac says, there might be a dual mic setup on new Airs. This is something that Apple's MacBook Pro with Retina already has, so it would match in that capacity. Also, the new Airs may and probably will carry the faster 802.11ac Wi-Fi chips. OS X 10.8.4 carries support for that and just happens to be live as of this week. So that looks pretty promising. And then, of course, Apple expected to talk about iOS 7 and OS X 10.9, Pandora competitor, iRadio. Yeah, we're getting down to the wire here. Patrick, does this excite you? Are you in the market for a new laptop? Are you excited about new Airs, or is this sort of like ho hum, small refresh?
I'm always in the market for a new laptop, even though I've managed to get about 4 years out of my last 2 laptops. But if Haswell delivers anything remotely near the battery life increase that Intel is promising, I would desperately want a new AirBook. MacBook Air.
I like that though, AirBook.
Awesome. I like that, yeah. If I could get like 11 hours out of a MacBook Air, I would want that so badly.
Yeah, I mean, the Haswell specs are very promising. 50% improvement in battery life over previous generations during active workloads like watching movies or surfing the internet. 9 potential hours of active use on a battery, 10 to 13 days of standby with fresh data on a single charge. So I mean, this wouldn't be just for MacBook Airs, but certainly for all the people who are hoping that a MacBook Air with Retina, it doesn't really look likely. Is this going to keep people excited, or are they just going to say, no Retina, Apple's failing?
I think if they move to the Haswell processor and it does have this battery life improvement, that means a MacBook Air could power a Retina display without having to change the form factor. So now you have this battery savings powering this crazy display. We've seen, at least in the past 2 weeks, or at least with Computex, we've seen a ton of laptops with incredible resolutions, and Apple's lagging way behind on their laptops. They only offer the 15 and the 13 and the iMac, but their laptops don't have these really high resolution displays. And for a company that prided itself in this, in the iPad and the iPhone, you can't even see the pixels, the fact that their entry-level device doesn't have Retina display at all is really weak. And with Haswell, I think they'll be able to pull it off, and they'll be able to say, we didn't have to change the form factor. It's got the same battery life, and finally, 226, pixels per inch.
Well, that's really interesting. So instead of better battery life that would almost rival something like an iPad, the battery life stays the same and can power a Retina display. Tom, what do you think of this conspiracy theory?
I actually like that conspiracy theory quite a bit. It seems Apple-like to just not tout battery life per se, but to show off how beautiful something is. So I feel like they would make that choice. I'm just hoping for MacBook Pros. I'm still a MacBook Pro fan. I'm tempted by the Air because they're pretty sometimes, but I want the power. I want as much oomph in there as I can get. That's all I'm saying. Let's move on to the random.
You deserve it.
Thank you. It's awfully kind of you to say. I also deserve a tricorder, and many people have tried throughout the years. Okay, let's not labor under the misimpression that no one has tried to build a tricorder. Since the 90s, people have been trying to build a tricorder. But Any.do has something called the Scout that they're calling a $149 personal tricorder, and it's part of the Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize that has raised nearly $700,000. The X Prize hasn't, but the Any.do has $700,000 past its Indiegogo goal. If people who want to be able to scan themselves at home for health. Now, this is actually a little better design than maybe the original Star Trek tricorder, but can do things like you actually have to hold it to your temple. It's not totally wireless, but it can measure your blood pressure, your temperature, respiration, other vital signs, stuff like that. Who wants one? My dog wants one.
Your dogs want them.
Well, I thought that was part of the video. I was like, well, that's a weird thing. Makes you bark is what it does. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that this is just a government play to read our brains. So
right.
I'm not going to be putting one up to my forehead anytime soon.
So next, in 3 months from now, we'll be talking about the NSA getting the information from Any.do, and we're like, oh no.
First, they listened to our conversations and we said nothing. Then they built
they took
a
our blood
device.
pressure,
and
we said nothing
to themselves.
Yeah. Patrick, you
I
want
think
one?
This is awesome, actually.
I'm still just
$150
laughing at you guys at this point, going from super excited to tinfoil hats.
Paranoid.
Phrase of the day. No, would I want one? Yeah. Unless it takes 45 seconds to do all of its measuring. Anything that might mean I can take the baby's temperature in less time gets me really, really excited.
And transmits to a smartphone too.
Blood pressure without a cuff, I'm all about that. That would be really awesome.
Very cool stuff. Well, let's see what's coming in the future on the calendar.
Ooh, I need one of these Any.dos to know what's inside. Oh, I've got it. The LG Optimus F3 is officially coming to Sprint on June 14th with a 4-inch display and a $30 price tag, $29.99. You heard that right. BlackBerry Messenger is either coming to iOS and Android on June 27th, or it isn't, depending on if you like the Verge's version or Business Insider's version better. Diablo 3 is coming to consoles on September 3rd, Xbox 360 then as well.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Yesterday, we mentioned that Microsoft would be making versions of Office available for free, bundled in with smaller versions of Microsoft Windows-powered tablets. And this caller has a really good point of why that might be cool for people.
Hey, guys. I was listening to your discussion about small tablets, including Office. And I think one of the biggest, one of the coolest parts of, especially in a business, You can imagine, someone getting a 7 or 8 inch tablet for work, and then when they're walking around with it, maybe Office isn't that useful. But since it's a full Clover Trail PC or maybe a future Bay Trail PC, you simply plug it into a dock, and you're using it as your full PC at your desk with a monitor, mouse, keyboard. That's where Office could get really useful. Anyways, I think that could be a really cool selling point, and wondering what your thoughts are. Thanks.
Docks to save the day. I like docks for this. You got a little 8-inch tablet. It makes no sense to run Office on it. You dock it. You actually have a full desktop PC.
I guess I want that, but I'm skeptical that it's going to work as well as I want it to work.
Because it hasn't worked for 20 to 30 years now. We've been waiting for it. So
this might be the time. Who knows? Try to be optimistic.
this is our year, UMPC. We got an email from Philip Dudas who says, living in Western Massachusetts, we have just gotten Peapod in our area. I am not so sure about getting fresh things delivered through Amazon, but would be willing to try it. I'm with you, Tom. Being home for the delivery is a challenge. However, I would love the ability to order the groceries and pick them up at a specified place along my route back home from work. It would greatly reduce time spent in the store and also allow me to just swoop in and pick it all up quick. They could even do curbside takeaway style. You could drive up and they recognize your car and bring them out to you.
Actually, love that. Just order it and then it's waiting for you. It's all in the bags.
Amazon lockers in Radio Shack on your way home.
Yeah.
There's actually, this is actually in place. There's a company that, oh gosh, now that name is escaping me.
I know Sam's Club does this. You can do pick and pull.
Yeah.
I think Safeway does this too.
There's also there's an independent company. It's got an egg in its name. Anyway, the whole point is fresh, sustainable, that whole thing. But there are certain areas, this is a San Francisco operation, certain areas that are pickup spots in a variety of neighborhoods. You know, like in the neighborhood I live in, the pickup spot is several blocks away, but not inconvenient to walk to. So yeah, I think more of that makes more sense than, you know, having to be home waiting for a package.
There you go, Philip. Check it out. Maybe it'll come to Massachusetts soon as well. That is it for our show. Patrick Norton, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, and let us know what's coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware and Techzilla and anything else you're working on.
Oh my goodness. Computex is a big deal this week, obviously, on This Week in Computer Hardware. Some of the announcements coming out. Obviously, a whole bunch of new tablet processors and mobile processors. And HT Nation, actually, we had some exciting stuff this week. LG's home theater in a box, and taking a look at what's going on with where can you find SpongeBob SquarePants and other Viacom Nick Jr. properties, since they have magically disappeared off of Netflix and moved someplace else. Those are the two big things that stand out. Oh, and the Roku 3. So, sorry.
So HT Nation is available at revision3.com/HTNation.
It is. We actually also have a longer version of it up on youtube.com/techfeed, but we're going to be moving that to revision3.com/HTNation in the next week. So I'm excited about that.
And a great point about Computex. This Week in Computer Hardware is a great place to catch up on that right here at twit.tv/Twitch, TWICH. Also, folks, don't forget about our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com, where you can suggest stories and vote on the suggestions of others. We look at that every day when we make our lineup. Don't forget our hangout coming up June 12th, 4:30 p.m. Pacific at a Wednesday. We're just going to brainstorm about the show. Of course, big coverage coming up June 10th, E3, WWDC. Keep tuned for details on all of that sort of thing. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. Email us TNT@twit.tv, or give us a call, leave us a voicemail. 260-TNT-SHOW is the phone number if you want to pick up the phone and say hi. We'll be back tomorrow with Darren Kitchen from Hack 5 and Len Peralta drawing. See you then.